Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's Full Potential Show. I'm James Rick, and this is your number one non-boring source for personal development. And today we're going to talk about developing your web presence with Philippa Gamse. She's a web strategy expert, author, consultant, and speaker, and she's written the book 42 Rules for a Web Presence That Wins. We're going to talk about some of the surprising rules for extraordinary online success because we don't have time to go through all 42 rules. Philippa, are you on the line?
I am. Good morning. How are you doing?
Good morning, and I'm doing great. I'm so glad you can join us to share some of these extraordinary rules for web success. Where are you located right now?
I am in sunny Santa Cruz, California.
Okay, and it's about 9 in the morning. This is my first interview, so I'm just waking up. All right, let's dive in, though. Let's talk about the 42 rules for a web presence that wins. What are some of the extraordinary rules? What are some of the things that might be counterintuitive that people aren't doing that they should be?
Yeah, so, there are two themes that go through the book. One is that too many people, too many web presence owners are leaving money on the table with what they're doing currently with their presence. I've reviewed something like 5,000 websites since 1995 when I started my business. So I've been around for a long time. And 95% of those somewhere were not making the most of opportunities that they should, or were spending money to no avail. Spending money on things like pay-per-click advertising that was just being wasted. So one thing is really making sure that everything that you're doing is optimizing the return that you're getting.
Okay.
And the other thing that I'd love to talk about is the emotional connections that we make online. So, when we're in the real world, we do a huge amount with our body language and our eye contact and our listening skills and all of that. But when we're talking to people on the web, we're not directly seeing them when they're looking at our social media pages or our website. And so we forget that emotional element. And one of the other things I've weaved through the book is an idea of how to really bring out those emotional appeals to people, because people make gut decisions even when they're online. And so how to really connect with them on that kind of level, because I think it's possible, and I think most web presences do a pretty horrible job of that.
Yeah. So I hear three major themes then as the extraordinary rules. They are getting a return on investment, so tracking the marketing that you're doing, and creating an emotional connection online because, as you said, people are making that gut instinct decision, even though they're going to try to justify it with logic. It's based on emotion. And so then we're going to talk about how to bring out the emotional appeals in people so that you can make that connection, even though it's an online connection.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, yeah, and these are important rules. And just to put it into context for everybody, basically, when we talk about the 7 areas of our human development and living our full potential, this most likely falls under the financial category, although I can see how this could also be where you can make some social contributions using these tools. So this is, I think, a way to strengthen your financial vehicle, and as a strategy using the web or using the internet. And so now we're diving into strategies that really work to create more financial gain in the financial area. So I want to just preface that with a context. So
yeah, James, let me just say, socially, through the book, there are examples and case studies of every rule has a story within it to make the point. And a number of those stories that I give are around nonprofits as much as businesses, because absolutely you can use the web to create social change.
Well, and we're humans, so the template that works in business, the emotional connection, the value add, that's going to work across an array of things like social charities and social organizations. So yeah, thank you for pointing that out. All right, so let's talk about how we can actually start implementing these things, because we get it. We got to get a return on investment, we got to track it, and we've got to create an emotional connection even though we're online. So we want to give them, us. We want to give them a personal connection, somebody to relate with. How do we start implementing some of these things? What are some of the best practices that you've seen?
Right, and so at the beginning of the interview, you asked me what are some of the unexpected rules. And one of the ones that people always pick up and they say you can't be serious is somewhere in the middle of the book there's a rule called rankings don't matter. And of course I'm referring to search engine rankings. And people say, what do you mean search engine rankings don't matter? Of course they do. We want to be found in search engines. And of course that's true. And what I'm talking about there is going back to my point about leaving money on the table, that it's really important to look at every keyword or key phrase that you're optimizing for and make sure that when people come to your web presence through those keywords, that they really are the right kind of lead for you and that they really are doing the kinds of things you want them to do. Because if not, then you're wasting your money and you're wasting your resources in going for those keywords.
Right, and so I just want to simplify it for those who aren't familiar with keywords and rankings. Basically, what Philippa is saying is that when you are ranking in Google, for example, at the top, those rankings don't matter. What matters is the keywords you're ranking for. So ranking does matter if it's the right keyword, but if it's not, it doesn't really matter.
Exactly. And in my book, I have an example there where a company was optimizing for the phrase data warehousing and the phrase enterprise data warehousing. And, that sounds really similar. You've added one word. But the difference in the response, people looking for enterprise data warehousing were apparently way further down the purchasing decision path when they came to the site and were far better leads. And because enterprise data warehousing is a more specific phrase, it's actually less competitive. And so it's actually easier to rank higher for that.
So here you found a keyword that's easier to rank high, it's the low-hanging fruit, and it's easier to make money with.
And it gives you more qualified traffic. So only the rankings that matter.
Yeah. And so now anybody who's watching who's in enterprise data warehousing, thanks, Philippa. All right, so let's move along then. So we've got rankings don't matter. Let's fire some other ones. I want to try to give them as many as we can, and then we'll dive in and clarify where we need to.
Yeah, one of the interesting findings, I did a lot of research for the book. There's a rule that's called speak the language of your visitors. And one of the things that's really interesting is that there's a lot of research that says that people who speak English as a second language, for example, even if they speak excellent English, are still more inclined to interact if they can speak their own language, their native language. Mm-hmm. And so if you look at the number of minorities in the U.S. who speak other languges, and this is not a political statement, this is purely about your web presence.
This is all a political movement, isn't it, Philippa?
No. But for example, if you have a large Hispanic part of your audience, you might consider having Spanish content, even in the U.S., because it will produce potentially a better emotional response in those visitors, and it's much easier to get higher for Spanish search terms in the U.S. than it is for English ones.
Okay, so less competition for the language, plus you're going to be connecting with them on a more familiar level.
Right.
So a better emotional response. Okay, cool. So speak the language of your visitors and give those options, and look at the rankings that really are going to matter and matter at the point of the buying cycle where they're ready to take action. Okay? Mm-hmm. What are some other extraordinary uncommon rules?
One of the best things and one of the more fun parts of the book, I think, is talking about creating visitor personas, which is something that companies are starting to do, but where you actually create some real people types who might be coming to your site, your website, or your social media presence, representing very different parts of your audience, if that's true for you. And so you're really giving flesh and blood to these people. How old are they? What gender are they? What are they excited about? Do they like pictures? Do they like information more? Are they data driven? What triggers their buying?
So when you say create visitor personas, do you mean almost like an avatar, like a single person that you're connecting with, but it represents a larger audience?
Right, but what you're doing is trying to create,
your target market.
A range of your target market. How familiar are they with the subject matter that you're talking about in your web presence, and then try to walk through in their shoes. You give them a name so they've really got a living, breathing personality.
Yeah.
Think about
your imaginary friend now.
Relevant. Right, and I've done this in some of the workshops that I conduct, and it's really interesting if people get into it. And they can create somebody and they go, okay, I know this is, Sharon, and I know what she's looking for. And then they look at their web presence and they go, wow, I have no clue. And it can be really eye-opening. You know, if I was this person, I wouldn't have a clue where I was supposed to go.
It's very different. Like if you say, oh, well, I serve everybody, but then you realize that the persona is really a doctor and he's familiar with the language and he's this far along in his education. Your language is obviously going to be very different if you're talking to the doctor versus somebody who's totally new to the field.
Right. And there are people who want to make a really fast decision. They know what they want. There are some people who really just want to talk to you. They really don't want to do their own research. They just want a way to get you fast. There are some people who just want to hang out and read a lot and think about it. You know, so
also the personality type, like an analytical versus somebody who's more just direct, give me the facts.
Right.
Versus somebody who's emotional, hey, I just want to feel good, and then I'll make a decision.
And if all of those apply to you, are you doing things with your web presence to satisfy all of those different types of process?
Okay.
So it's a great exercise to do.
Yeah, it sounds like a very productive thing to connect with your target market, and everybody needs to do that. Before we wrap up, we got a couple more minutes. What I want to do is, if we can fire out a couple more rules, that would be really cool. And then let's talk about how people can get a free copy or the first 5 chapters of your book.
Yeah, so, you know, the last rule says if you don't follow any of the other rules, follow this one. And that one says you have to have strategies for every single area of every page of your website, every part of your social media presence. It's really important to know why do you want people to be there, but what do you want them to do as a result of having seen what you're offering? Because if you don't drive people to the next step, the chances are they won't take it by themselves. And a lot of times people say to me, but it's obvious that you need to do this. And you just can't assume that anything's obvious. So be thinking about the next step on every single aspect of what you're doing.
So when you talk about the strategy and thinking of the next step, what I hear you saying is that don't just put up a page, don't just put up content, and don't just assume that they're going to go do what they need to do with all those buttons there. You need to be clear on what your funnel looks like and step by step walk them through that process all the way to the point of, are they going to be calling? Are they going to email? Are they going to order something? Be super clear on the website exactly what you want them to do. And in many ways, I've heard you should even, specifically tell them, whether it's on the video or on your text, what you want them to do next.
Absolutely. And if there are options, give them options.
Okay.
You can give them more than one thing to do, but just, make it really
clear. Make it crystal clear what those options are. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So we're going to re-summarize real quick. Make sure you're getting a return on investment. Use some kind of dashboard or feedback for getting that return on investment. I'm sure you can cover that in your book. Rankings don't matter. Make sure you're ranking for something that matters, not just ranking itself, but the keywords that are further along in the buying cycle. Make sure that if you can, connect with your visitors in their native language. So Spanish, connect with them in Spanish. It's easier to be found and it's going to create a better emotional response. You want to create visitor personas so that you can connect with your target audience better. Again, you're relating with them better emotionally. You want to have a range of your target market too. So maybe not just one persona, but when you know the 2 or 3 that are your target market match, then you can speak to them. And have strategies for every page, for every area. Don't just throw up a website. Be crystal clear on where you want them to go as they go through your website. Am I missing anything, Philippa?
Fantastic summary, James. That was great.
Well, I have been writing it down, so I'm actually taking notes and cheating a little bit here. Okay, so Philippa, where can they go to get the 42 rules? Because we only covered some of the most uncommon but important rules. Where can they go to get the first 5 chapters of your book?
So at my website, which is websitesthatwin.com, you can just go there and there's a little form and you can get 5 sample rules. And, of course, the book is on sale at Amazon and all good book places. Okay, all good book places. None of those bad book places. We don't put it there. Even if it sells, it's a bad place. This is websitesthatwin.com. You can go there and get 42 rules for a web presence that wins, or the first 5 chapters. And if you like the book, then you can go get it from a good book place like Amazon or her website. Philippa, thank you so much for being on today's Full Potential Show and sharing your insights, the strategies on how to build a better financial or social vehicle for changing lives or changing your business. Thank you so much. It's been great.
Thank you, my dear. And everybody, I encourage you, go to websites.win.com, get the 5 chapters. You got nothing to lose. And if you like it, then you're going to want the whole book. And it's an easy investment to make. Everybody who's watching and listening right now, not only go there, but be sure and like and subscribe to the Full Potential Show so you can get more great insights from wonderful people like Philippa and myself, and freebies that you'll only find right here on the Full Potential Show. Philippa, I think either you can go back to sleep now, or now you can have a great day there in Santa Cruz.
Great. Thank you so much. Great interview.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Well, that concludes this week's episode of the Full Potential Show, your #1 non-boring source for personal development. I'm James Rick, and if you want to get more positive programming for your brain absolutely free on a weekly basis, just visit fullpotential.com.
If you like the Full Potential Show, you're going to love the Full Potential Club. What would you like most as a Full Potential Club member? Be 2 to 3 times more productive? Do what you're passionate about? Have more energy? Reduce your work hours? Travel the world? Enjoy an amazing lifestyle on a frugal budget? What if you could do them all? James Rick has been there and done it in ways that few people have. For anyone serious about taking their life or business to the next level, you know you've got to do more than just watch. You've got to do. Join James Rick and other like-minded people for an incredible $10 a month at fullpotential.com/club. Be educated. Be empowered. Be the best version of you. fullpotential.com/club. Try it free for 30 days.